You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey everybody on Facebook Live, we're about to go live here on the HollowNet podcast for the Antifa apocalypse that wasn't. We're going to have a really fun show today. We are going to, of course, have to address a bit of terrible news that we did hear. Apparently there's been a mass shooting at a church in Texas, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about Bowie Bergdahl and the seeming miscarriage of justice that has taken place. And now new rumors indicate that his attorneys may be seeking a POW medal for him. All that coming up. Stick with us. We're about to launch the HollowNet podcast live here on the Lanterns Media Network.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HollowNet has been approved. Please stand by.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host from Phoenix, Arizona, Matt Holloway. How we doing today, folks? Got a crazy week to catch up on. Weren't with you last week, but we're going to make up for it today. We're going to talk about the Antifa apocalypse that wasn't, the dishonorable discharge with no jail time of deserter Bowie Bergdahl, the tragic shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas, and also the mass arrest of several Saudi royalty. All that and more coming up here on the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
My fellow citizens, recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Thanks for joining us. So today we have some very, very interesting times. Very, very interesting times. We're confronted by several pieces of news as we go into the week this week. The first and probably most important that we need to address is the horrific shooting that took place today at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. 20 confirmed killed, according to reports. We also have at least 10 injured, and it appears that the daughter of the preacher of that church is among those confirmed dead. The exact number of victims in the attacks wasn't immediately known, according to AP, but law enforcement who was briefed on the investigation told the Associated Press that more than 20 people killed, between 10 and 15 others wounded, although the officials stressed the investigation is in its early stages. The official said the gunman fled in a vehicle after the attack and was killed, either by a self-inflicted wound or during a confrontation with police. The official was not authorized to discuss the ongoing investigation and spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity. Federal law enforcement swarmed into the small community 30 miles southwest of San Antonio after the attack to offer assistance, including ATF investigators and members of the FBI's evidence collection team. So, dreadful events today in Texas, just south of San Antonio. Horrific. And I've stressed many times on this podcast and through my writing career and in general that we cannot allow tragedy to be politicized for the gain of either one group or another, for the pro-gun lobby, the anti-gun lobby. Today's horrific events stand among themselves. To have such a thing happen, especially in Texas, it's absolutely horrible. And our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those people who were lost and wounded, and we hope that they're able to find peace. It seems like we're hearing about more and more of these shootings, and at this stage it's really too early to speculate the motivations of the shooter. They've been varied, but many a pundit, many a commentator or an analyst, quote-unquote analyst, is going to sit there and tell you that this is either an indication of a need for greater gun control, or this is an indication that we need to deport people en masse, or this is an indication that, our border's insecure, and they'll apply all kinds of different pieces of logic to this and try to turn it into an argument that favors their political agenda. Don't allow this tragedy to become fodder for someone else's agenda. Let's just simply, in a dignified fashion, mourn those lost, support those who remain and who are injured, and move on with our lives, and not give this kind of media firestorm and credence to these kind of events, because I am of the belief that they're perpetuated in part by the response that they engender. There is a great... it's actually quite disturbing, but it's a powerful teaching tool out there. It's a game called You Become What You Behold, and I've written about it before. I actually showed it to Chris Merrill when he was on KFYI, and he was amazed by it. But it really is a way to teach that this kind of horrible behavior is self-reinforcing, and the greater media and social media impression that we have, the faster information is shared, and the more this is put out there. I mean, people are doing this because they want to be famous. I'm going to put that right out there. People are doing these horrific things because they want to be noticed by the world at large, because they want people to watch them on Facebook. I mean, this is why, people go, oh my God, why would somebody be dumb enough to Facebook Live a crime? Well, that's why. People aren't Facebook Living their crimes so they don't get caught. They're Facebook Living their crimes because they think it gives them some sort of fame, some sort of leverage, some sort of notoriety. And in a sick way, it kind of does. So, here I am, a podcaster. I'm spending 10 minutes on this shooting, and I'm not going to say the name of the suspect, even if I had the name of the suspect. I don't want to say the name of the suspect. I don't want to give them what they want. I don't want to feed this kind of behavior in our society. So I think the thing to do is bury our dead. Don't turn this into a political football, but treat it with the dignity that the families deserve and move on with our lives. And don't feed it. Don't feed the evil. Don't give it what it wants. Because every time we see one of these on the news, it's, oh my God, we got to take the guns. And then the gun lobby gets all in an uproar. We have to defend our Second Amendment. And then, the people who are big fanatics on border security say if the assailant was Hispanic, oh, it's the border. It's the border. If the assailant was Middle Eastern, oh, it's terrorism. It's terrorism. If the assailant was, and in some situations, the evidence later bears that out. But in the day that it happened, when nobody has proof of anything, nobody has motives, nobody has any idea why this shooting took place, just let the families grieve. Let them bury their dead. Think and pray. And speak from a place of knowledge before you speak. Don't speculate. Because speculation is dangerous. Idle speech without fact or truth can be dangerous. And yeah, you've got the freedom of speech, and I've got the freedom to not recommend it. So that's what I have to say on the Sutherland Springs shooting today, and the many other shootings that we've talked about here on the HollowNet podcast. I don't like to speculate. I don't like to give the shooters what they want by giving them notoriety. So let's not. All right. On to lighter things. Got a cool piece of audio I want to play for you guys. I recently put it together. It's a little bit of a mishmash of a speech that I gave a couple weeks back, and I want to go, about a year ago, and then I went ahead and I made some changes to it. I just thought I'd play it for you and see what you think of it. So that's going to be coming up here during this next commercial break. And when we return, doesn't anybody remember there was supposed to be something big going on yesterday? Wasn't there supposed to be some great big national rally? I think they were calling it the Antifa Apocalypse. That's right, the Antifa Apocalypse. Oh, 21 cities nationwide. We're going to keep protesting, and we're not going to stop protesting until President Trump and Vice President Pence resign. And I think 20 people might have showed up at one point. We're going to get to that. I'm trying to get you some figures. I'm just going to read you off some of the coverage here. Dozens protest against Trump administration in Boston. That's dozens in Boston. A little bit more on that when we come back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, I'm Matt Holloway. Hang around.
It's true. Has it happened to you? 'Cause it starts with a dime and ends with a dollar. Makes me wanna get up and to holler. Hey, what has it happened to you? 'Cause it's happening all around and no one's making a sound about it. Gotta take back America, 1, 2, 3. Take back America, you and me. Take back America, or we're all screwed.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HollowNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to thehollownet.com or hollownet.lanterns.buzz.
Facebook Live. Here's that new bump. Your comments really helped with this. Thank you so much, everybody.
I see people coming together not for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. And the principles that founded our nation, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. We have an opportunity opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations, and unite as Americans. Not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. I've covered a lot of stories, but the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century, when we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism, when we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, when we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there's one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, I am free.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
The cool thing about having your own show is I can't really get in trouble for putting that at the front.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Yeah, you know, I probably should have left that for, like, the midway break, but dang it, I wanted to play it. I'm pretty happy with that piece of sound. I thought that was really well done, but what are you going to do? So, I'll do a really short midway break, okay, guys? Really short. Be like one spot for lanterns, and that's about it. All right, so, backing away from the technical BS, want to jump to this Antifa apocalypse. The end of the world. Oh my God. Yeah, that really didn't happen at all, did it? No. And I gotta say, I'm pretty glad. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of the Alex Jones types, you know, talking about the government and turning the frogs gay and Pizzagate and chemtrails, all that fun stuff. Yeah, all those types were saying that this was going to be the beginning of the next civil war. That's right. The next civil war apparently started in our country yesterday. And here's how it started. With about 500 or so people protesting in Los Angeles. About 100 in New York. According to Associated Press, dozens in Boston. That's right, dozens in Boston. My God. Really? That's all we can come up with? I mean, I really think I actually need to go back to my old school wrestling roots here. And hang on, let's see if I can pull this audio. This is going to be fantastic. Hang on. No, that's not going to work. Okay, so I'll just do it, and I'll just demonstrate how much of an old school wrestling nerd I was when I was a kid. There used to be when I was a kid, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he would talk about the millions and millions of Rock's fans, and then you'd have Mankind, Mick Foley, who was one of my old school favorites. If you haven't read up about the 5 faces of Foley, even if you're not into wrestling, it really is fascinating how he portrayed 5 different distinct characters, sometimes simultaneously, throughout his wrestling career. But anywho, you had the dozens and dozens of Mankind's fans, who he would reference inevitably after The Rock referenced his millions and millions. That's the way I kind of feel about the Antifa apocalypse that happened yesterday, is it was the dozens and dozens of Antifa supporters in 21 cities across the country. And it really does sound very impressive in some of these stories where you hear, how hundreds of protesters rallied against Trump in Times Square. Do you know how many people fit in Times Square? Do you know what, like, the attendance figures are for, like, New Year's? It's measured in the thousands upon thousands. I think one year it was like 30,000. I know AJ's listening. AJ, if you're on, see if you could pull that for me real fast. Let me see here. Times Square occupancy New Year's. See what that pulls up. I'm just curious to know how many are actually held there. Oh, come on. Really? There's no figure for that? My beautiful assistant, Google, has failed me. Okay, I am seeing a couple of figures, but yes, it is coming out thousands in excess. So we have hundreds in Times Square. You have hundreds in Times Square in line at Gray's Papaya to get a hot dog on a Wednesday. I just want to establish that. Hundreds of people in Times Square is like nothing, nada. Like I said, that's how long it takes to get in to see the Winter Garden Theater. You're in a crowd of hundreds. So am I downplaying this? Yes, I'm downplaying it. I'm absolutely downplaying it. Boston had dozens and dozens of protesters? You get better than that at a Sox game. Come on. That's what this will be remembered as. Antifa Civil War fears unfounded as hundreds of protesters against Trump rally in Times Square, according to the NewYorkDailyNews.com. The Daily Mail has hundreds upon hundreds of pictures saying thousands of anti-Trump protesters in 22 cities across the U.S. take to the streets for demonstrations which ended peacefully despite fears that Antifa would hijack the events and ignite a civil war. That's in the Daily Mail. Now, I want to put this in the context of the UK and the way the UK thinks about these things. I want you to remember the overall population of the UK is, I think, 70 million. Let me confirm. Population of the UK. 65.64 million people. Okay, 65.64 million people. So in other words, about as much as a major metropolitan area in the United States. Like New York, LA, comparable, right? So when you say thousands of people protesting in 22 cities across, sounds like a bigger deal. Especially if your reader is in the UK, where it is a less populous nation, a much smaller nation. But in the United States, thousands of people across 22 cities. Okay, so if we're talking like 3,000 divided by 22, it's not a lot. Not a lot at all. I mean, I sit with more people in traffic on the I-10 every day. So what's the deal? Where did all this hype come from? What was the buildup that made people think this was going to be like the end-all, be-all of all protests, and that this protest was going to be so strong and so powerful that President Trump was going to bolt out of bed? And I think, well, he's in Japan right now, so he's on Tokyo time, but was just going to bolt out of his bed, cot, what do you call that in Air Force One? I don't know. He was going to bolt awake and say, I have to resign. The people have spoken. But I don't want to resign when I'm this close to China. Really? I mean, what was the end game here? What pressure did you think that you were going to pose to the president that would just cause him to instantaneously resign? And Vice President Pence, why in the festively decorated hell would he resign? Why? Because you don't like his stance on gay marriage or on abortion? I mean, if you want to wrap up President Trump in all this Russia stuff and tag him in with the Russian collusion, it's looking bad for Manafort right now. It's looking real bad. I mean, that dude's going to jail, and he probably ought to. I'm pretty much dead certain that dude's going to jail. It's also looking pretty bad for Podesta. Was it Podesta? Or was it that other kind of semi-unpronounceable name? Anyway, Manafort's going to jail. President Trump? probably ain't going to jail. I'm just going to put that out there. Probably ain't going to jail. I don't even see him getting impeached for this. But let's also talk about Hillary Rodham Clinton, who, if you just read Donna Brazil's excerpt, which was on Politico, is anybody investigating her right now? Not so much, no, huh? They're not really digging too far into that. She seems to be sticking around for the long haul. Tell you what, if you actually think that either Donald Trump is going to resign from the presidency or, God forbid, go to jail, or if you think that Hillary Clinton is going to see a day in court about this Uranium One business or about hijacking the Democratic Party and using it as her own personal slush fund, if you think either of them are going to face music about that, there's a bridge in northern Arizona I want to sell you, because I can get your money, I guarantee it. It has gotten pretty dang ridiculous at this point. It really has. This red herring that is the Antifa apocalypse. The fact that such a small niche group thinks that they can levy enough power and influence to oust a sitting president who, admittedly, is not the most popular president ever, but at least commanded enough to get the White House free and clear via the Electoral College. I mean, if you want to see a little bit about this, go ahead and pull up the Twitter hashtag Antifa Apocalypse. Patty Gardner tweets with a picture of the New York Times and the newspapers showing all the banner headlines about this, saying, "We did all this advertising and no one showed up. Hashtag what happened?" Antifa Apocalypse. I think that's rather interesting that she used the hashtag what happened, because that kind of lines directly up with Hillary Clinton's book following her presidency, doesn't it? What happened? What had happened was nobody cared. Everybody realizes you're full of it. Nobody wants what you're shilling. There you have it. You have the absolute right to go out there in public and hold your signs and chant and do all the things that you want to do and be happy, shiny people. But nobody cares. You're not going to instigate a civil war, kids. Somebody posted in advance of it, Antifa Apocalypse, cities should have National Guard in place with orders to stop. They are not unhappy kids. They are paid criminal scum. Well, you know what? For paid criminal scum, a lot of them didn't show up to work. What's the write-up process look like? Is it, you fail to show up for one rally, you get a verbal. You fail to show up for two rallies, you get a written. You fail to show up for three, that's when you get a suspension without pay for next time. And then if you fail to show up for four, then you're fired? Is it kind of like working in a call center? Like that? Okay. Yeah, now hashtag Antifail is out there. AJ Monty, USM Patriot at the Option Oracle, said, paid protesters no longer need Soros's money thanks to strong economy. Thank you at Real Donald Trump. Retweet Antifail. Breitbart, Antifail, low turnouts at nationwide refuse fascism protests. So the boys over at Breitbart are having a good time with this one. Cheers. That high-quality HollowNet coffee cup coffee tastes pretty good. It does taste pretty good. Available. You just have to hop onto Patreon, and we'll get that set up for you. I ran over my line. I got to take a quick little break here. As I promised, it's going to be a nice short one. So come right back, and we're going to smash our faces into our collective keyboards, and we're going to talk about Bowie Bergdahl. Bowie took a walk, Bergdahl. We'll be right back. If you're listening, you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/TheHollowNet. Tweet at Matt D. Holloway or at The HollowNet. And as always, find us on iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio at The HollowNet. Lanterns.buzz is where to find all of our content along with TheHollowNet.com. Be right back.
Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Well, I messed up the timing on that, but oh well. That's the nice thing about having a podcast of your own. Damn it, it's my podcast. I can do that if I want to. Oh, shoot. Somebody called Dylan. Am I allowed to say damn it? Dylan, hit me on Facebook. Let me see if I'm allowed to say that. All right. So, back to the news. Got to hit a couple of things here. Hit them hard. Hit them fast. One thing I had to point out that I absolutely had to giggle at just a little bit is somebody on Twitter under Antifail had listed my two favorite Muppets. That's Waldorf and Statler. You might remember them as the two old balcony dudes on the Muppets saying, "Boo! That's the worst revolution I've ever seen." Good stuff. Good times. But I promised before we took that really, really short break at the half that we would get back to real news. Real things that we need to talk about to go into the week in order to be prepared for it before the mainstream media deluge hits on Monday morning at 6 a.m. The important things to be aware of this week. Bowie Bergdahl. That's right. Not the Bowie we all like, but Bowie Bergdahl. Seems to be getting a free pass. He is off on his own on this one. Dishonorable discharge, no prison time for Bowie Bergdahl. According to CNN, Bowie Bergdahl received a dishonorable discharge from the U.S. Army, but will avoid prison time for desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. After abandoning his outpost in Afghanistan in 2009, a military judge ruled Friday. The judge ordered that Bergdahl's rank be reduced from sergeant to private. That's right, guys. So he got docked in rank, down from sergeant to private, and dishonorably discharged. That's it. Additionally, Bergdahl will be required to pay a $1,000 fine from his salary for the next 10 months. Quote, Sergeant Bergdahl has looked forward to today for a long time, Eugene Fidel, Bergdahl's civil attorney, said in a news conference after the proceedings. As everyone knows, he was a captive of the Taliban for nearly 5 years, and 3 more years have elapsed. While the legal process unfolded, he has lost nearly a decade of his life. The sentence is effective immediately except for the dishonorable discharge, which Bergdahl is appealing, according to Fidel. Wait a minute. Hang on. He's appealing it. Listen to that, folks. Not only is he getting off basically scot-free here, he's getting kicked out of the Army, and a dock in pay, and busted back down from sergeant to private. He's trying to appeal the dishonorable discharge. The president and a lot of other people have said he should face the death penalty for desertion and for misbehavior in front of the enemy. Because we're talking like borderline treason. And he wants to appeal it and stay in the Army. Wow. Goodness. I mean, thinking about that, just I've spoken to some veterans, and if you haven't listened to them, I recommend you do. Defenders of American Exceptionalism, DOAE show on Twitter. Make sure you check them out. But Dylan had some crazy things to say, because Dylan's a veteran on this, and I really think that by itself should be just the height of delusion to think that he's going to be admitted back into the Army. But wait, it gets better. Military.com on 3 November Richard Sisk reports, the lead defense attorney for Army Sergeant Bowie Bergdahl said he wants him to receive the Prisoner of War Medal. That's right. He quotes, "We have long felt he was entitled to the POW medal," Fidel said, the newspaper reported. It wasn't immediately clear whether the Bergdahl's defense team plans to push for the award as part of the process to appeal his dishonorable discharge. An email request for comment to Fidel wasn't immediately returned. Earlier Friday, Army Colonel Jeffrey R. Nance, the military judge at Bergdahl's court-martial at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, sentenced the 31-year-old, holy crap, he's the same age as me, sentenced Bowie Bergdahl to dishonorable discharge, a reduction in rank to E1, and a monthly pay reduction of $1,000 for the next 10 months. Despite the fact that Bergdahl received a dishonorable discharge sentence, his defense team indicated they will seek the Prisoner of War Medal for Bergdahl. The award was authorized by Congress and signed into law in 1985 by President Reagan. The award generally goes to those, quote, taken prisoner and held captive while engaged in action against an enemy of the United States. So I want to just hear me out. I think I gotta say this to get it right in my own head. The guy abandons his post, goes away without leave, okay? Is nearly convicted of misbehavior before the enemy, right? These are facts, okay? These are the facts of the case. I'm not injecting an opinion here just yet, all right? So, if you're nearly court-martialed and convicted, well, he was court-martialed and convicted, he just wasn't sentenced to prison, but he was court-martialed and convicted in a case involving misbehavior in front of the enemy, doesn't that preclude the very possibility of getting an award for being a POW? Think about that. I mean, granted, I've never been tortured. I'm not in the military. I'm not going to even jump on that high horse. That's why I kind of defer to our veterans and our former military who create content here on Lanterns Media Network, and like Dylan Lyles on Defenders of American Exceptionalism, and he can get much more righteous indignation on this than I as a civilian possibly could. But doesn't misbehavior before the enemy pretty much automatically preclude you from getting an award for POW status? Kind of makes sense to me. Like, you did it wrong, buddy. You walked off base, they pinched you, you were taken prisoner, and as a result of that, several good men died to rescue you. And now you want a medal. It strikes me that he wasn't taken prisoner, quote, while engaged in action against an enemy of the United States. He was taken prisoner while AWOL. He was taken prisoner while committing a military crime. Ergo, it doesn't stand to reason that Bowie Bergdahl, Private Bowie Bergdahl, I wish I could say civilian Bowie Bergdahl, is not deserving, in my mind, of a POW medal. If that's just me, kids. You want the straight Scooby coming from somebody in the military, hit up Dylan, he'll set you straight. Either way, going to take one more quick break here, and the fourth story that we're going to dive headlong into without even a worried glance below us is going to be the bit of a shakeup there's been in the Saudi monarchy. That's right. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been rocked by recent arrests. Rocked by recent arrests. Oh my God, they're going to get me for the alliteration on that one. Rocked by the recent arrests of several crown princes, grounding of aircraft and seizure of assets that seem to indicate a very widespread corruption problem within the kingdom's government. That, and to look forward to next week when we return here on the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. everybody. This is Matt Holloway. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network, and I want to thank you for your continued listenership, readership, and all the support that you've given me and everyone here at Lanterns over the course of the last year or so. Now, as we come up on a year of delivering this podcast on a weekly basis, we've begun to feel a bit more like a community here at Lanterns.buzz. And right now, we're a community that's in need of assistance. So I wanted to call on all of you today, if you can, to log on to patreon.com and search for Lanterns on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/lanterns. Because we need your assistance in order to build this network out bigger, stronger, and better than it's ever been. With your support, we can bring in more voices that have been stifled. We can celebrate American exceptionalism. We can grow and educate our people. We can lift a lantern to shine a light into the darkness. Our mission is to shine a light on the actions that our government is taking now or have taken in the past to threaten the rights of Americans without consideration to the political party or organization. We will expose destructive counterculture that aim to destroy the idea of America and celebrate the parts of our culture that live up to the great ideals formerly expressed by our founders. Up until now, our entire operations have been funded from the generous contributions of our team members. That generosity has created a growing demand for our pro-American content, and with that growth has come new challenges to expand our operations. Our goal is to expand and maintain the operations of our website and the radio network. And we humbly and graciously ask that you consider supporting Lanterns.buzz by becoming a patron on patreon.com. Again, that's www.patreon.com/lanterns.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
Holy cow, we're back! God, that was a quick hour. We're back here for the last 15-minute segment of the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Man, that kind of sucks when you forget what your own show's called. The HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From the AP, Saudi arrest of princes consolidates another's power grab. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's heir to the throne is overseeing an unprecedented wave of arrests of the country's most powerful princes, military officers, influential businessmen, and government ministers, some of them potentially rivals or critics of the crown prince, whose purported anti-corruption sweep sent shockwaves across the kingdom Sunday as he further consolidated power. You know, in other countries, we would call this, I don't know, a coup. We would call this a takeover attempt, but not in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia's our buddy. They're buddies. We like them. They give us oil. They do. They're big investors. That's right. Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is a huge, huge investor in tons of Western companies. One of the men who was taken into custody on Saturday was Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, one of the world's richest men with extensive holdings in Western companies, as well as two of the late King Abdullah's sons. This is called taking out your rivals, man. Don't you watch Game of Thrones? Jesus! Except it's not, winter is coming. It's more like a sandstorm is coming, and it's never winter because it's the desert and it's hot. But think about that. The arrest of senior princes upends a long-standing tradition among the ruling Al Saud family to keep their disagreements private in an effort to show strength and unity in the face of Saudi Arabia's many tribes and factions. It also sends a message that the 32-year-old Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has the full backing of his father, King Salman, to carry out sweeping anti-corruption reforms targeting senior royals and their business associates who have long been seen as operating above the law. Can I just say for a second, I'm 31. I got a new job recently, and that's going well, and we're doing good, and podcast is doing pretty well too, all that stuff. But I feel like such a schleprock when I'm talking about these guys. 32, Prince of Saudi Arabia, and he's like cleaning house. He's like sweeping out all of his other potential political rivals to the throne. And he's 32. That's like 15 minutes older than me. Then Bowie Bergdahl, Private Bowie Bergdahl, becoming one of the most, singularly maligned, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but one of the most singularly maligned soldiers in American history, right up there with Benedict Arnold, and he's 31. So I feel like I'm behind schedule or something. Like I should be making some really big impact, and I'm not. Maybe that's ego. I don't know. But 31, 32. Anyway, I digress. The Ritz-Carlton had no availability for bookings until December 1st, 2017, a possible sign that an investigation of this scale could take weeks. Marriott International sent a statement that is currently evaluating the situation at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh, but declined to comment further, citing privacy concerns. So it looks like it's coming down in the Kingdom of Saud. So that is what you want to watch going into next week. Not just the fact that one prince among many in Saudi Arabia seems to be consolidating power and knocking off rivals like something straight out of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or some other medieval thriller. This isn't an episode of The Tudors. I mean, this is actually happening in real time, folks, in the 21st century with billions of dollars at play. Not to mention how volatile the region is today, with Iraq fighting each day to take back lost territory from ISIS, the Kurds still trying to fight for their own independence, the Turks snapping down on them hard, the Syrian situation still incredibly ugly. Now we have more talks between the Israelis and the Palestinians. We have the Palestinians saying that any government agent in Palestine must now submit to the statehood of Israel. They must acknowledge the statehood of Israel. So Hamas is pissed. Now you have the Iranians. The Ayatollah just went ahead and announced that he's installing a new head of the Navy, which could indicate a massive change in the strategic naval operations of Iran. And, by the way, the other night, Yemenis Houthi rebels popped off a ballistic missile at Riyadh that the Saudis intercepted and shot down. Not nuclear from what we can tell, but still a ballistic missile. A missile that is capable of traversing 650 some odd miles and just missing the capital of Saudi Arabia. So I want you to think on that going into next week. What a destabilized Saudi Arabia could mean for the Middle East and for the United States forces that are wrapped up in that region. An unstable kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a problem. Hat tip to Jonathan Dunn, my good friend, Freedom's disciple on The Blaze. He has returned. Make sure you tune in and check that out. That's on theblaze.com. Freedom's disciple, Jonathan Dunn, the most American Irishman you will ever meet in your life. He is the one that went ahead and informed me of the evolving situation in Saudi Arabia. But with all that, there is always hope. There's no place in this show, no place on Lanterns that I know of for fear-mongering or for hate. We're going to always do our best to shine a light on the world and hold the line against the night. As always, I want to thank you for spending an hour with me today, whether you listen live or whether you listen in your car days later or weeks later. It is so very valuable and such a great honor to have you as a listener to this program. And I want to make sure that I'm demonstrating my appreciation for that every single time we meet. So this has been the HollowNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From beautiful sunny Phoenix, Arizona, where it still isn't winter yet, dear God, it's still in the 80s. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. We'll be back in a week. We'll see you then. Until that time, good night, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Facebook Live. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Kind of new positioning of the camera. I hope it worked out a little bit better because now I can kind of make eye contact with you so you're not enjoying the beautiful view of the side of my head. Even though I got a nice side of the head, I think. Nice side of the head. I think it's pretty cool. Anyway, it's a lot to take in, man. Bowie Bergdahl. What a mess. Man, what a cock up that stuff. Jeez. And, dear God, that shooting in Texas. Extra thoughts and prayers going out to those families tonight. But as always, wanted to thank you for joining me today, as always. Forgot to shut off my live stream. I'm 25 seconds late. Chris Pillier is going to kill me. Anyway. I just want to kind of chill with you for a second. Just a little bit longer. You know, I know I got a couple of people still locked in here on the Facebook Live. Just answering the questions here. There's two Patreon pages. Why don't you guys check out? The one Patreon page is patreon.com/HollowNet. patreon.com/theHollowNet. That's if you want to become a patron of the HollowNet podcast in particular. The other website is going to be patreon.com/lanterns. And that allows you to support the entire network. So if you guys want to do that, I'd be grateful to you. I'm really, really searching for some advertisers who can also support us and can help to improve the illustrious surroundings here. All this kind of crazy stuff. This is all me and my family paying for it, and they've been real sports about helping me continue this dream and follow it through. And I know, Diane, I'm gonna get this figured out. These are really expensive. It's like I'm trying to find a way to do it that makes sense. I bought one. I have to see about picking up others. But with all that, guys, not gonna keep you tied up too much longer. I gotta start editing stuff, and I will catch you later, all you beautiful people out there. So from Phoenix, Arizona. Good night. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Take it easy.